The 1950s were exciting times for motorsport. Wartime airfields were being transformed into racetracks, and the thrills came thick and fast.
The circuit here at Snetterton was one of the first to open, and thousands of people came to watch their heroes.
And one of the greatest of them all was Archie Scott Brown.
He would drive around the outside of the heroes of the day, the Salvadoris and the Mosses and those sort of people. He completely fearless and so skilled. I mean, his car control was second to none. It's unbelievable. It was poetry to watch him.
He was quick. I mean, really quick. And I think I probably noticed him because he was fast. I mean, you know, you go up and you sort of, who's the person that was going jolly quickly? And you go across and there was Archie.
But Archie's success came against all the odds. He was born with both legs severely twisted and his right arm was only a stump. He had more than 20 operations as a child, but his dream was always to become a racing driver. In the early 1950s, Archie and his mother moved here to Hills Road in Cambridgeshire, and a piece of motor racing history had begun. This was Archie's MG, which he nicknamed Emma, and he loved nothing better than going racing in her. Soon both he and the car attracted quite a local following. Today the car's owned by Chris Caruana.
The car was originally a standard car, and then he modified the wings by initially ripping them off on a parapet of a bridge and replacing them with lighter motorcycle mudguards.
Quite a goer for
a
car that's been around that long.
It is. I've kept it in good fettle, and I should think she's now in the sort of trim that Archie would have been racing it in.
One of the first places that Archie brought Emma was here. It may not look like much now, but this used to be RAF Bottisham, another airbase converted into a racetrack. It wasn't long before Archie's exploits on the track caught the attention of another local driver.
Archie was in his TDMG, and he got within about half a second of my time, whereas I really should have been about 3 or 4 seconds quicker than him. It was then that I realized that he would make a much better driver than I could ever hope to be.
So Brian teamed up with engine specialist Don Moore and began building cars for Archie. Before long, Archie was showing the stars of the day just what he and the new Lister cars could do.
Archie would often just drive round the outside of them on a very high-speed corner. And the car in the most lurid four-wheel drift, a complete power slide, and all you'd see was the blur of the steering, with him working at the steering. Something you just envied. You could never do it yourself. You'd fly off the road if you tried that.
In 1957, Archie got behind the wheel of the new Lister Jaguar, and the checkered flag didn't stop waving.
He competed in 14 races. He won 11 of them, finished second in another one, had minor troubles, one at Snetterton and one somewhere else, but on every circuit he either broke or equalled the lap record.
What was incredible was how he managed to control the fastest cars of his day with just one hand.
How he managed to use what he got in the place of 2 arms and 2 hands was quite staggering. But I mean, he'd jam his little arm in there and get the steering going, and you know, quite amazing. He was in there making little adjustments all the time and banging, changing gear, of course, and all that. So quite remarkable. He was not in any way disabled when you start talking about racing, actually.
You think he was absolutely able-bodied and nothing at all wrong anywhere. He was the bravest of brave. He would, I think he's probably almost too brave in the way he drove.
On the track, every second counted. But off it, Archie had time for everyone.
We had arranged for the Lister Jaguar to go to a fete at a Cambridge school, And whilst we were there, one of the people said, "Pity about poor old so-and-so, he's in hospital." And Archie said, "Which hospital is he at?" "Addenbrooke's in Cambridge." So he drove the car down to Addenbrooke's and drove past, waved to this boy and all the nurses and the other patients that were looking out the window.
Yes, he was very approachable to anyone. Very good with children. If you came round with your child at the circuit, he would sit them on his lap or in the car or have them in there or that sort of thing. He'd always got time for people.
Archie's exploits also had a massive influence on a then 12-year-old schoolboy who was left with very similar disabilities to the racing car driver after picking up a wartime explosive.
I lost my left hand and my right leg above the knee, my left leg below the knee. Well, when I was in hospital, my Uncle Frank came to take me to watch a motor race, and he pushed me around the paddock, and at that meeting we actually saw Archie Scott Brown, who was one of my heroes, in a Lister Jaguar, and he drove it with such verve that I thought, hey, if he can do that, maybe I can have a go at that.
David not only went on to race, but also to fight for the rights of other disabled drivers. Unlike Archie, they now have the help of modern aids.
My left arm is only off through the wrist. I have an artificial hand here, and in the centre of it there's a cup. And on the ball, on the wheel, there's a ball, which I never lose contact with. I can flick the whole car from lock to lock without too much of a problem. And my right leg is off above the knee, so that's not an awful lot of good. I keep that to one side. But the left one is off just below the knee, and therefore I use that for the accelerator and the brake.
After years of success on the track, David had been planning to stop racing this season. But this isn't quite what he had in mind.
Right. How you doing?
Yeah, okay, fine.
Yep, just take a breath.
Yeah, okay.
You had the worst of those.
Fortunately, David was fine. But Archie's story doesn't have such a happy ending. In May 1958, he crashed while racing a Lister Jaguar in Belgium. He died as he lived, doing the thing that he loved the most, driving fast. Archie was just 31. In his short life, he'd chalked up 71 victories.
When he was lying in hospital, his father went in to see him, of course, and stayed with him for quite a bit. And the old boy came out to me after Archie had died and said, one of the last things Archie said was, "Tell Brian not to feel too badly about this." You know, again, what a personality.
He leaves a remembrance of a guy who was nice to be with, fun and fast, and so he's disabled. So what?
Today, Archie is fondly remembered. The Archie Scott Brown Trophy is competed for every year at Snetterton, and Brian Lister's remarkable cars are coveted the world over. So the next time you're debating the greatest racing car drivers of all time, put in a good word for Archie. This memorial plaque has pride of place here at Snetterton.